Alright, so I wanted to show some additional compositing tricks or kind of what I do basically. And then additionally, the question was asked, what does the out of the box of something that I would work on look like versus what's composited. So here you can see a comped frame, and these are here you can see the raw renders that produced this frame. So raw renders, just kind of A over B here, and I can step you through like all of the passes that I used to create this. So I had a sky, and it's just some shitty image. I think this is from CG Textures, more than likely. And then this guy's cropped, just graded and hue corrected, shifted slightly to match to the greens and kind of push it back. Ultimately, this guy gets graded as well. Then A over B again. Nice edge there, which gets resolved, would get resolved. So we have the waterfall. This is the fog for this. The waterfall itself. There were a couple of different smoke passes when this is all said and done. And what I'm doing with these is most of them are overs. So this is an over operation, but something like smoke, you're going to want a plus over. Okay, so the operation is plus. And also additionally, what you can do is, bear with me, I was hitting a fusion hotkey, which is not correct. Additionally, what you can do is you can use a grade and you can mask by that smoke using its alpha, maybe. Let's see what its alpha looks like. It looks pretty similar, so we can use the alpha. That's fine. By default, it's going to be alpha. So we can come back over to here and we can either mult this up, which generally doesn't work oh so well, or just kind of gamma up slightly with that smoke. Because what you want is you want it to kind of lay over your dark areas a little bit more natural as well, and sometimes just plopping this guy over doesn't quite give you the result that you're going for. I also always mess with this mix amount and have it pretty low. Did I pause my? Yep. So you can see if I just laid it over 100%, this is what I would get. Whereas, just kind of lightly putting it in there, and then grading, by the alpha, or, just grading in the first place can also get you there, and you'll have a little bit of sometimes what happens in the darks just with a grade can be a little bit better. So but you can use, don't be afraid to use the two kind of in conjunction. Getting smoke and fog like laid over naturally, it always just takes a little bit of finessing, and it really, like, I never just like apply it wholesale. Frequently also I'll put like a hue shift on this, color correct, something like that, to shift the colors maybe a little bit more blue or a little bit more yellow, depending on how I set it up. If you rendered it with the lights, sometimes you'll already have that color. Maybe you want to push it a little bit more. So that's something to think about as well. Then foreground trees, and that's pretty much it. And then I rendered 1600 by 900 and then just up-resed to 1920 by 1080, which is fine. So that's that side. So these are just the raw passes, right? So that's what I'm demonstrating here, okay? over here, this is all of those passes kind of put together. So a little bit more obviously goes into this, but basically, and I real quickly went over this before. This is my background. Then I've got these trees I said that I had color corrected. A lot of the times I'm messing with their black point and their white point and setting color values in here. And one cool thing that you can do inside of Nuke is, let's say we have this guy and this guy. And if you click on here, you'll get a color picker. And anytime you control and click in the screen, you'll see it's going to adjust your black point to the values that you're picking on. So obviously I'd want to be picking a very dark area in this case. And it's in a case like this where it's CG, the differences are going to be subtle more than likely because this was rendered from the same dome. But it can help with some seeding issues and getting stuff kind of playing nice. The other thing that we can do with this is use a hue corrector, and I love this thing. I frequently will work just in like red, green, blues. I don't use the suppressions a whole ton. I use the luminance quite a bit and saturation as well. But this is great because let's say we want to isolate this color here. It's just tweaking my black point. Okay, so it'll show us like where we are, and then you can come in here, and if you Control-Alt-Click, you can create a new point, and now we can either pull that down so we can take the yellow out, or bring kind of more yellow into it and really kind of green, make those guys a little bit more vibrant and pop a little bit. But it gives you a way to really pull down in a very specific area. I use that a whole lot, and you'll see as I walk through this. But so at any rate, we've got these guys after grading them, a pre-mult, and just a little bit of edge blur to lie in with some of these colors and stuff, really just kind of getting rid of some detail along the alpha, so it's not so crisp. And then I laid some smoke over. The smoke was not rendered to be there, but I just wanted some texture. And as we've talked about, like, smoke, we use smoke in various ways at Blur, and frequently just putting a still fume grid in an area and just to give it some body and depth to it will really help. Okay, so I graded this guy just to like brought up his multiplier, brought down the blacks, and was just trying to like push that shit back, basically. Give it some atmospheric perspective, throw some smoke on it. When all else fails, throw some smoke on it. Okay, and then I've got the waterfall over here, and I kind of showed you guys what I did with this. So we go into an RGB rebuild. I'm tweaking. Whoa, sorry about that. My refraction, my reflection. So tweaking the whites and the blacks, and just adding contrast to both of those channels to kind of make it pop a little bit more. So in this case, like, I wanted this to go a little bit more yellow. It was a touch kind of soft and blue before, so I really wanted to push those yellows in. So that's this grade here. Again, you'll see I'm like constantly grading black points and white points. Little bit, just a ever so slight, well, it's not so fucking slight actually, size 3, that's a pretty decent edge blur. Probably, yeah, 0.2 defocus, just to soften it again. And took it a little back blue. So I might have at some point been going back and forth between like where and how much yellow I wanted. So then laying that back over, and this was just a light wrap to kind of accentuate some of the more like turbid areas or kind of disrupted areas, and just plussing that over very, very lightly. Then some fog. In this case, plussed over. I have a full mix here, but I've graded beforehand. So in this case, I actually wanted more presence of the fog. This fog is kind of lackluster, to say the least, so I kind of cranked it up and laid it back over. Then some smoke at the base of the waterfall. And then this was one of the hacks that I had to make because of the way I was kind of forced to render this because of my memory footprint. This is just the waterfall. It was actually the tree on a card, then reprojected down into just a ground plane so I could render it really fast. And just isolating that one area. Like some more smoke. Some more smoke. Smoke yet again. And just because I'm sick of looking at it like this. Oh, you being a cheeky fuck. Hey, crop. Okay. Okay, so most of this at this point is just trying to like put everything back together, and that's generally the way I start. It's like you'll see. Alright, so I've got the tree. I hue corrected it. I took some of the purple out, graded it, just putting a little contrast in. Unpremulted because I'm about to do some shit to this, and then I'm grading by the normals here. So my normals, I think I'm grading on this side, yeah, by red. So I'm hitting this side of everything. Then when I rendered this, I didn't have the fog as, or this tree is a part of the fog, so I'm laying the fog back over this stuff and then chopping it out by the alpha of this so that when they lay back over, they're kind of more consistent. Slight edge blur. This is then a light wrap, and you'll see why it might look a little funky, but so the light wrap just helps to like seat some of this, like just brightening up those pixels just along the edge. Really looking at these like high contrast areas and trying to not have anything be too hard. So again, I'm not doing anything at this point to the overall image, right? I'm just putting things A over B, A over B, A over B. And I'm tweaking individual passes, but I'm not like tweaking the image as a whole. I wanted some more vegetation in this area, so I added that. And this is basically just color correction, some contrast. Don't mind this. It's something that had to go back. This is for the projection that I rendered with the reflection, so that's not part of the pipe. Again, putting the fog over and pre-multing it by the alpha, so everything gets that fog, and then laying that back over. And then this here is the first time I grade the entire kind of image, is this exposure. So once I get everything together and I'm starting to feel happy, like, you know, I might not be happy with my image, but I'm like, okay, everything looks like it's kind of falling in line together. You know, this as opposed to this. So here's my raw, here's my comped, you know, like put back together, basically, right? When you break these things up and you have to like break it up to the level that I did, something gets lost in translation always. So you got to kind of put it all back together and, you know, tweaked, obviously. So let's see, where was I? All right, so then we go into this like series of grades and saturations, and so this is just adding contrast, gamma down, bolt up. This is probably a 0.9. Yep. Let's see. Tweaking the black point and multing way up. I'll do this where I will push the image, sharpen to kind of help with some of the softness that I kind of added into this. A little bit of a vignetting, so this is just a roto drawn out. And tweaking my, now just bringing the levels kind of generally up. I like to kind of flatten it out in a way before I really start to like heavily grade. And I also, you'll notice like I could have, you know, I'm like tweaking the white point, then like coming back and tweaking the white point and the black point again. I kind of like, I'll add these guys and kind of compound grades up on top of each other, because at any point I'm just like, I didn't really like that. I just turn that one off, as opposed to, well, you know what, I did want my my gamma, I did want to kind of gamma everything up, but now I'm like tweaking one slider. It's just a little bit more non-destructive or kind of transparent. Again, fucking with the gamma and the white point. Apparently I wasn't very happy with that. And then gammaing back down. And I'll do this. This could be, it might be that this makes like no fucking sense. Like, why would you have done this? And it doesn't. Like, looking at it right now, I'm like, what the fuck was I doing? And I can tell you what I was doing more than likely is I got down to like, you know, here, and I'm not totally happy with something, and I'm just going to throw one grade up here, like in the chain, and then I tweaked something else, and then I threw in another grade and whatever, and I kind of end up with grades on top of grades, and I could definitely like take all of these and probably collapse them into one grade. That would actually be a great tool inside of Nuke. It's just take the values that this produces on the RGB and collapse it into a single grade, leveling these things out. That'd be sweet. We need that. Exposure and desatting slightly. You can't comp without a glow. Or just light grading. Slight defocus. I think this is a ramp from this side over, so I'm just like defocusing. this side of the image, defocusing it, grading it, and desatting it as well. Then laying, yet again, more fog over top of everything. I wasn't quite happy with the level of the fog. Then this is starting to like hit this area up here. So one thing you're going to notice is this is probably, well, you've never seen one of my comps before, but this is a lot more rotos than I normally would use, simply because it's a still. Not to say that I can't get away with using rotos. I will send out like 3D locators to track my my rotos too. I don't fucking track. Like, I mean, I do, but when it's in a full 3D scene, there's just no reason. You can send a locator and you can attach your rotos to that, and you can have stuff like accurate in 3D space. You can use point paths, you can use all sorts of stuff. So I've shifted it blue, exposed up ever so slightly, and tweaked the black point, gamming probably at a 0.9, just clamping everything down. And decided I wanted to go a little bit yellow, apparently. So I think I'm probably going to get to a point where it's... Alright, so this is even like not finaled. And for this I was kind of, because it's a personal project, I'll fuck around a lot more than I would at work. So I like to play with magic bullets every once in a while, and this one, you can kind of see like this is something I'll send it out to Magic Bullet Look and throw like 15 different looks on it and bring those back and combine them in different ways, like soft lights and whatnot. So like, you know, I don't completely like this, I don't also completely like that, but maybe some combination of the two in like a different way is going to produce something that I like. So I'll kind of blend those two together. Again, I'm using that on that one side, defocusing. Then I'll take... That's interesting. Oh, this is another one. Yeah. Just labeled wrong. Another Magic Bullet Look, and just lightly plussing that over what I had, desaturating it, exposing it way down. So this I did, like, I don't know, I'm kind of going back and forth these days on, like, you know, stuff being like kind of too punchy or whatever. So I've exposed down and then kind of leveled this guy out, so really just like brought the mids way up and gotten rid of a lot of the contrast in this, throwing this through a log to lin and then OCIO color space. Yeah, and then it's back to and this I just like fucked with until I got kind of a look that I wanted, tweaking what I spit out, but kind of trying to simulate more of like what would this look like out of the camera. So all of this was to like simulate this would be real life, perhaps, and then capturing it kind of through the camera. It also gave me an opportunity to get at these guys in here and glow them ever so slightly. A little bit of blues, exposing that guy back up, and then again I plus that back over, all the way back up at the top of the chain, this stuff. So it's a lot of like, I just kind of mess with it. There's no like, well, I mean, there is. When I'm at work, it is different, I can tell you that. And here I'm tweaking the colors, so giving more luminance to these purple and reddy values and bringing it down in the yellows, you know, kind of overall to the image. One thing I didn't do in this one that I normally do a whole lot more is kind of tweaking by mattes and stuff. This is just a lot more like overall image type stuff. Then rotoing over here, vignette, just taking a little bit of contrast out, clamp at a 0.95 probably, or 0.9. So then brightening this up, I think it's probably a multiply and a black, and then molten gamma and tweaking the white point just in, this area basically. Not basically, actually. And just adding some kind of visual contrast across the canvas here. Bringing up that center, bringing down that top. Just fucking with softening and sharpen. And this is always like a dead fucking giveaway. It's funny that this is in here. I pretty much never do this, and I think it's like a funny thing. But again, because it's a personal project, I'm way more apt to try different things and fuck with stuff that's like not normally my technique or not normally something that I'm going to do, just to see kind of what the result is. What do I get? And yeah, and out. So lots of just grading and exploring in the image and like baking out other images, and I'll do it even within the comp where I kind of merge, one on top of the other, kind of, this type of thing, and set it on top of itself, or throw a grade off of here and grade it real crazy and then set it back on top of itself again and soft light it on top, or tweak the colors a little bit, things like that, all in a similar way as if I were like fucking around in Magic Bullet looks. So that is how I got to this. And I mean, you can see like the tools I'm using: hue corrects and grades and histograms, just again and again and again. Like, my favorite node is definitely the grade node. Exposures for sure, but those would I'm not doing anything crazy fancy in this particular comp. So that is kind of a breakdown into the image that I created, the passes that I spit out for it, what those look like, what the final comp, and honestly, like, I wouldn't even consider this like my final. It's just, I don't know, I'm not done with this. I don't know that I'm going to work on it again, so it's kind of done, but not totally happy with it, but it is what it is. So with that ends this session.